Alrighty, so back to doing some more stuff for our clock. So of course, as we usually would, when we start a new day, we of course go to File, Set Project, and then of course we can find our project, which is Project 3. Remember, we don't open the folder, we just select the folder and hit Set, and that's set. And then of course we go File, Open Scene, and it'll take us right to the scenes for Project 3. There's the clock. We can open it, don't save that, continue, and you'll even see that the picture is already in there, of course, because that's a big part of why we use projects. So where we left off from last time was we really got a good start for the clock, right? Kind of started the basic front part there. We kind of showed our extrude border edges kind of around there, and that kind of gave us a nice little structure and form. Now remember, Alt left, right? Alt left is your rotate camera. Alt middle is your move, right? Remember, we're pressing the scroll wheel down as the middle mouse button. And Alt-right zooms, right? So that's going to give you that good kind of ability to navigate. Alt-left, Alt-middle, Alt-right mouse button. Remember, treat your scroll wheel like a button. Press it down. And that's just going to allow us to do our navigation. What we want to do is we want to kind of keep building this up. So, one, we want to turn our symmetry back on, right? Because we were symmetrically modeling this. So of course, remember, you left click on the object and it kind of selects your object. Of course, you can hold down right mouse button over an object to make sure you're in object mode, right? That way when you select it, it's green wireframe. And of course, modeling toolkit's our little tab on the side right here. And we go to symmetry and we can go to world X. And now we've got symmetry on there. Now we're not seeing it yet because we're still in object mode, but now we want to actually start to kind of build up and connect the rest of these parts up here, right? So we're going to go to, put our cursor over the object, hold down right mouse button, edge. Right, and that's going to put us in edge mode. You can actually see the symmetry working. And because we picked the x-axis, you notice it's selecting the edges on these sides right here because x-axis, right? So that's what world X, of course, does for us. And what we could do is we could start to actually kind of take some of the rest of this stuff and extrude it out. So I'm going to select these two, right? Remember, you just left click and then shift, right? Shift adds, left click again. And of course we can extrude, right? Remember, the quick key for that's Control E. But we'll extrude, and I'll hit W. Remember, W is your move tool, right? And we can just move this forward on the blue arrow. Of course, remember, you can use view move if you want to. It's that center one. It's a little bit kind of at an angle here, so we can always hit E for rotate, right? Do a little bit of rotation. And if we want to be a little smaller, we can even scale it, right? Scale it in a little bit. R for scale, right? Remember, they're all right here. Move, rotate, scale. But we also have W, E, R. And what we can do is we can slowly kind of start to extrude these out. So I'll extrude again. Hit W. Now remember, you can also grab these little planes, right? This little center one does just moves according to view. Moves according to the relative to the camera, right? But this one right here actually constrains to just these two axes, right? So remember, you actually have a pretty neat and pretty easy to use manipulator system in mind. I'm going to hit R for scale again, scale that in a little more, kind of thin it out a little bit as it kind of moves in here. Maybe a little bit of a rotation to kind of bend it a little bit, right? And now we're at the point where if we want to, we can start to actually bridge these together, right? So really we're just extruding border edges, right? Edges where there's only one edge, only one face connected to an edge, where there's no more geometry. That gives us that ability. And you notice I extruded out twice, and that's going to kind of give us a nice bridge there. Of course, I can move this out a little further. Remember, if you double left click, right? Double left click with your mouse button. So when I say double left click, I mean left mouse button. And we can move these ones out too. So you see how you can kind of do these nice little adjustments as you work, right? E for rotate, rotate that a little bit. So remember, you can actually go back in here and do these nice little adjustments as you work to kind of have it bend and pull its form in. Kind of work with the move tool. That one we probably want a little bit straighter though, so bridge to those better. And of course, R for scale. We can make it a little smaller. So remember, just W, E, R, and you can use whatever handle you want to rotate. That's the view rotate on the very outside there. It rotates based on the camera, right? So it's kind of rotating it like the camera is the world axis. And of course, R for scale, we can scale the center one in to scale it all. And of course, W for move, and you can use any one of these handles. And of course, Q, remember, is your quick key for your selection tool. And of course I can hold down Shift, because Shift adds, right? And you see the plus icon, the little cursor has a plus next to it. And I can select these two edges, right? Because two edges to two edges, all right? You really need to bridge same number to same number in Maya, right? If you're trying to bridge three edges to two edges, it's not going to work. Maya will just not do it, right? Maya really needs to bridge same number to same number. It could be 2 to 2, it could be 3 to 3, it could be 4 to 4, it could be 5 to 5, but it has to be the same number to the same number. Also, you'll notice that there's no other edges. These are separate areas. That's the whole point of the bridge tool, right? We've already seen it. We did it on our brace, right, for the top of our lamp, right? We extruded those faces up with symmetry on, kind of moving and rotating to create that shape, and then we kind of created that cylinder and combined it and bridged. Which, if you've watched the other two videos, in this one, it's nothing different, right? It's the same tools. We're just getting to use them more and practice with them more. Except this time we're using them instead of on polygons, right, faces, we're using them on border edges. Remember, edges like these right here, where there's two faces connected, are not border edges. If you extrude those out or try to bridge those to other parts, it'll create non-manifold geometry, which is not very good. It looks weird. Many tools won't work with it. We do not generally like non-manifold geometry. So remember, you can extrude and bridge border edges, and that's it. Edges that only have one face connected to them. So in this case, 2 to 2. So we just hit bridge, and that creates that geometry between there, right? So our bridge tool is, pretty awesome. And you can see that extruding and bridging border edges really gives us a lot of freedom to kind of build the shape exactly the way we want to, right? And of course, I could hold down right mouse button, go to Vertex, and I can, move this out a little bit, maybe move that one out a little bit. Just, kind of control the shape a little bit more. And you see how this time I'm just using a view move. That can be quite useful, right? To kind of make some little adjustments here. There we go. And now what we need to do is we need to start to kind of bridge these guys together, right? So I'm going to go to edge selection again, right? So remember, put your cursor over the object, right? Edge. And then I can select this edge, shift click, right? Shift adds, control subtracts. Although shift will subtract also, right? But remember, shift and control can subtract or add. And in this case, once again, you see I'm doing 2 to 2, right? Now this edge we can leave by itself. We don't want to have it selected because we need, to bridge stuff, we need separate areas of a model, right? They should still be one model, but they have to be separate areas. If we include this guy, it's all one edge loop, right? Bridge is not going to work on that. So it has to be kind of two distinct selection areas. But it needs to be same number, whether it's polygons or border edges. And we can bridge. And you notice it automatically welds that up for us, which is great. Now we are left with this little opening here. And remember, if you select an edge on a hole, right, because there's just a missing polygon right there, if you select an edge on a hole, you can go mesh, fill hole. And once again, this is a tool we've seen before as well. So you notice that we're not actually doing a lot with new tools on this one, right? We're just getting to show things like extrude and bridge on border edges more. We're getting to show combine more, circularize a little bit like we saw to kind of fix up that guy. So we'll fill hole. Now in this case, you'll notice how that's a triangle, but you'll notice that this triangle shape is actually looking pretty good, right? The shape doesn't look weird. So believe it or not, just like occasionally you can have n-gon, if you only have a handful of triangles on the model and they're actually creating the shape you want, you can kind of get away with that, right? We prefer a strong quad bias. You really want to work with quads most of the time, a lot of the time on your models, particularly something with a lot of curvature, something's going to animate. But a triangle we know deforms and is actually pretty predictable. They're just not easy to model with. So if we had this model made of triangles, it will not be easy to model with. But a triangle here, because it terminates this well and holds the shape pretty well, really not going to be too much of an issue. So in this case, we'll just leave that triangle. Should be fine, right? We don't have to worry about it too much. All right. So now in this case, what we want to do is we want to start to kind of fill this in here. Now in this case, we might even find that we maybe don't need quite as many of the edges as we had in here, right? So maybe, just maybe, we could take these out. Although I'm kind of seeing an opportunity to get rid of this triangle, right? Because we can kind of see this edge can go to this edge, and that one can kind of go to that one. But we kind of notice maybe we need an extra one here. So what I'll do is I'll kind of start to bridge some of this stuff together first. Select those two edges, right? So 2 to 2, and we can do bridge. There we go. Now you'll notice that that's not quite sewing that together properly. So it might even be one of those things where maybe we'll just do these two edges, right? Edge, single edge, bridge. We can then grab this edge here and do a quick mesh fill hole. And there we go. Now that's an end gone, and we don't want to leave it that way, but we see that it does at least get us filled in. Now in this case, though, we see that there kind of really feels like there should be an extra edge loop here. So I'm going to go to multi-cut, right? And I'm going to hold down Control, right? And remember, multi-cut is your edge loop adding tool, right? And if you hold down Control, whatever kind of edge you're over, that's what it's going to add the edge loop to, perpendicular. And by adding it in there, you'll notice how that triangle is now a quad. And you'll notice that we have kind of a proper 2 to 2 now. So sometimes you kind of will have an n-gon or a triangle temporarily, and then as you start to move further, you can go, oh, I can put that in there, and that actually solves that problem. So occasionally, if you need to use a triangle or an n-gon, even on something like this, that we want to keep primarily quads because it's got a lot of curvature, you have to keep in mind if it's creating any weird shapes, right? If it's going to animate. In this case, this clock's obviously not going to animate. And in this case, we find out, like, just within a minute, hey, we can add an edge loop through here. So I can bridge those, and now we have that all nice and neatly connected. Of course, we can do a little bit of shaping and adjustments, right? This guy could probably come forward a little bit too as well. So we can always do a little bit of shape adjustments, and it could be to any kind of selection type, right? I can kind of do it to vertices. There we go. Now in this case, we do have this n-gon, right? And this is actually one of those things where if we really, really wanted to, we could always kind of try to connect these up and just leave a triangle there. But I'm kind of feeling like, hey, it's probably not going to hurt us to put an edge loop through here. So in this case, we can just hit Control-Shift-X. Oops, that brought up that one. I'm using a different recording software now, but it still brings that up. So remember, that's kind of why I don't use the quick key for multi-cut with these videos, because I have quick keys, default quick keys for some recording software. So remember, Control-Shift-X, though, is your quick key for multi-cut. So I'm going to turn multi-cut on. And we want to put an edge loop into the face loop row, right? That's got the n-gon, right? See, this is the n-gon here. You'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices, right? So I'm going to hold down Control, and I can put an edge loop right in there. Now remember, you can, of course, have multi-cut have edge flow on, so it'll not change the curvature here. But in this case, it's not really going to change the curvature in any bad or negative way anyway. So I would just say we can leave edge flow off. But that is an option that's available, right? So I'll undo really quick. And if I turn that on, you'll notice when I put it in, it tries to maintain the edge flow. But sometimes it really doesn't help much or doesn't do much at all. So edge flow is great, but it's not magic, right? Now, this does leave us with this instance here. Now, we could, of course, delete this face, right, and just bridge those across. But there's a tool that we're going to be seeing a lot more later on anyways, particularly when we get to our troll for Project 6. Believe it or not, if I'm in Vertex Mode, all right, so remember, that was just multi-cut, and I hold down Control, put an edge loop in. Let's do it one more time just to show up. Multi-cut, hold down Control, boom. Turn multi-cut off. Now, in this case, I'm in Vertex Selection Mode, right? If I hold down right mouse button, right, over your object, remember, you put your cursor over your object, you hold down right mouse button. Remember, this brings up your selection types. Edge, face, object level, vertex. And I want vertex, and I want to select this vertex, and I want to cross from it, right? Because it kind of looks like there's an edge missing here, right? Now, there is a tool called Connect that actually fixes this, and we're going to see this tool more as we go on, particularly in our later modeling projects. So if I hit Connect, watch what it does. You'll notice it's got options here. We don't have to worry about those options for right now. But you'll notice Connect looks like it's going to make an edge in between these vertices. That's exactly what Connect is going to do. I hit Enter, and that actually made an edge between there. So despite the name Connect sounding like a merge or a bridge tool, well, we saw the other day we do actually have merge tools, and we know we have bridge tools. So Connect is actually kind of like multi-cut's cousin, right? So when you hear Connect, don't think of bridge or merge, think of multi-cut, right? Think of you're adding edges or edge loops. It's just that instead of it being automated like multi-cut or fully manual or for slicing, Connect can actually add edges or edge loops to what's selected, right? So kind of good to remember that. I'm going to hold down right mouse button and go to edge mode really quick. Select that edge, hit W for move, and I can do a little free move just to kind of bring that out a little bit, right? We can still adjust these shapes as we go along, right? We're not done with the shape just because we've already done modeling, right? You can always adjust the shape as you go, right? So not terribly difficult to go in here and make some quick shape changes if we need to. All right. So now that's actually getting us a lot of what we need for this, right? So you see how kind of just a little bit of extra adding of multi-cuts, a little bit of bridging and extruding border edges, and maybe even a little bit of connect really is allowing us to quickly build this pretty neat kind of shape here, right? So you could see that we didn't go nuts with a really complicated shape here, but we wanted something interesting enough that we could start to explore and show you how the extrude and bridge border edge tool can allow you to kind of be a little more creative and make something a little more dynamic and interesting. All right. Now, before we do some of these other parts, we want to kind of really get the main shell done, and then we can kind of do another video to kind of finish up the buttons and kind of separate this trim out a little bit. So what I really want to do is I want to finish up kind of the little bit of the bottom part here, right? Now, in this case, you'll notice in the picture, it actually kind of arches in a little bit, right? Whereas this is kind of a nice rounded shape, this kind of cuts in a little bit. So we want to mimic that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on that one. And you can just keep manually doing it, right? Hold down Shift, kind of keep manually doing it, you can do that. But just to let you guys know, if you click on an edge, left click on an edge, and then if you Shift, right? Because Shift is always for adding, so we're still using Shift. But we Shift double left click on an edge down the further, you'll notice it does range. So left click on an edge, and then Shift double left click, right? So we're kind of double left click as our edge loop selection. But if you hold on Shift and you do it on an edge further along, it'll do the range selection, right? That's cool for you guys to know it's an option available. You don't have to use it, but it's a neat option. I don't quite want all of these because I want to do something a little bit different with those back ones, right? So I'm going to extrude, right? Good old extrude. And we can move these in. In this case, if I want to, I can kind of move them with that red and kind of bring them in here a little bit. And he starts getting us a little bit of that kind of arch shape coming in. And then, of course, I can extrude again. Hit W for move. So we're switching back to move. And you see I can kind of bring this. And now we're kind of getting this little arch shape, right? So this is really going to kind of allow us to get that last little bit right there. Now in this case, it's probably going to come forward a little more in the front. So I can always go back to, say, Vertex, right? Remember, hold down right mouse button, particularly over your object, and switch to Vertex. And I can move this in a little bit. And even this one can be moved in a little bit, right? Remember, we can use these squares to just move along 2 axes, right? But you said we can kind of still adjust that shape a little bit, so we're kind of keeping some of that roundness, but kind of also mitigating some of that roundness as well. So this starts to give us that shape there. And then, of course, one of the things we could do is grab this edge here, and we could extrude, W for regular move, and we could bring this one kind of in a little bit. And then extrude again, and W for move, and kind of bring that one down. There we go. And you see how we can kind of start to kind of make that shape come to life in there. And also I can go to Vertex Mode, and I could always, move that a little bit, just to kind of get a little more roundness for that shape. And you notice I'm using kind of the square, because it'll move along just 2 axes, right? So this is great because this gives us a little practice at shaping a little more dynamically, right? But remember, move tool, W for move, right? And now what we can do is we can always go back in here and go to edge selection, right? So remember, your cursor over your object, hold down right mouse button, edge. And I can just slip these two. Remember, you can always hit Q to go back to regular selection tool if you don't want your manipulator in the way. Also, it could be easy sometimes if your move tool's on, if you shift click on the actual manipulator handles, it'll actually extrude, right? Which is kind of cool to know, but also can kind of be a little bit annoying when you just want to move stuff. So be a little bit careful that if you're holding down Shift and you actually click on one of the handles, you'll notice it says extrude. I'm going to bridge again. And once again, our bridge tool we're seeing is pretty awesome, right? It's actually one of our cooler tools. There we go. Bring this one in a little bit. All right. And now you can kind of see we've built that kind of nice little kind of structure there. And we could have just extruded those all out at one point, but it's great to get a little practice at those. All right. So now what we want to do is we really want to kind of bring this all together into one piece. So I'm just going to kind of grab these ones right here. Extrude. W for move, move these in. Now in this case, I want this to probably get a little straighter. So if you turn on scale tool, right, R for scale, you can actually scale towards the center of your manipulator, and it stops, right? I probably don't need 0 for this one, but I can kind of straighten it up a little bit more just by scaling it close to 0, right? Because 0 scale really is flat, isn't it? So kind of flat is another way to say straight, right? So kind of 0 scaling towards the center with one of these handles can kind of be a cool way to flatten stuff up. Now in this case, I do need this geometry to kind of connect up here. Now, of course, we turn symmetry off in bridge. In this case, though, I'm going to remind you guys about the merge tools, right? Just so you guys get to see those a little more. So I'm going to extrude again, W for move these in towards the center. And you see how it's not merging those, right? So what we have to be able to do now is merge these, right? We could have turned symmetry off, just bridged with the division. That would have worked fine as well. That's actually a good way to do it. But we've been using bridge plenty. So in this case, I want to show you merge tools a little more. I showed them a little bit last time. So I'm going to hold down right mouse button, and I'm going to go to Vertex, right? Remember, hold down right mouse button over your object, and it brings this marking menu up. Right mouse button, right? Hold it down, right mouse button. And it brings up this marking menu. You can kind of move your cursor to select the different kind of things. So we'll go Vertex, we'll select those two. And remember, in the Edit Mesh menu, we have Merge. Now, this merge gives us a threshold, right? A distance these vertices can be from each other before they're merged, right? The bigger the threshold, the bigger the distance, the more it can merge stuff. In this case, it's going to be quick enough and easy enough to just go to merge to center instead, right? So I just kind of close out that. I don't actually want to use that merge. But this merge to center does the same thing, except that automatically just merges whatever vertices are selected to the center of the selection. So that can be a great fast way to do those. Now in this case, you notice how it didn't work? That's because symmetry is getting in the way. All right, so remember, sometimes you have to go to symmetry here and hit off. So now we can go to Edit Mesh, Merge to Center, and you see how it merges those to a single vertex. I can select those two. Remember, Shift, Select, of course. Edit Mesh, Merge to Center, and this can be a great quick way to kind of just merge these guys. Edit Mesh, Merge to Center. And then those two. Merge to Center works best in this case usually when you just want to merge two vertices, right? Because it just merges them right to the center, so does that seam up. So remember, you actually have merge tools which primarily work on vertices. And it welds them together, merges them. So remember, you have merge tools. Obviously, turning symmetry off and bridging those edges with a division of 1 would have worked pretty well for that. But I just want to make sure you guys got to see those merge tools a little bit more again. It's good to get some practice and see some of these other tools for when you need them. So I'll turn World X back on. There we go. And you see how those are all kind of perfectly centered, so everything works properly. And in this case, there will be a triangle if we created here. So I'm going to add an extra edge multi-cut. Hold down Control, put an edge loop in there. There we go. And what I can do is I can start to kind of bridge these ones in the back, right? So see, I can kind of grab these kind of 2 by 2, right? 2 to 2, leaving that one blank. Bridge automatically merges those up. And then we can kind of come in here and do a similar thing on the front here, right? Boom. And we could bridge. There we go. And you see how it's actually bridging those pretty well. We're not getting any seams or holes there. In fact, I probably could have added this extra row. But remember, it's going to be the same number, 6 to 6. Bridge. There we go. And now, of course, there's this last little area here, so I can grab an edge on it. Remember, you have to grab at least a single edge on a hole. And then we go Mesh, Fill Hole. And once again, we've seen Fill Hole before, but we're getting practice with it. And you notice this does create kind of a 6-sided polygon right here. Kind of similar to what happened kind of up here, right? So if I hold down the right mouse button and I go to Vertex, I can select those two vertices because there's no edge in between them. And we can use that Connect tool and hit Enter. And there we go. And you see we've built kind of the primary forms for this clock radio pretty quickly and pretty easily. Gonna make some little shape adjustments to those ones. But you see how kind of this edge flow throws through here? If I go to multi-cut, you see how there's kind of an edge loop that flows and follows this actual shape through here, right? And that's what we were kind of really trying to build there. And you can even see kind of this loop flows along the surface. So this is one of those things when you look at it, it's kind of a square front into kind of like a kind of a 2/3 squashed sphere. But even dynamics like that just make it a little bit more complicated. And so it's a great place to kind of really show off how using things like extruding and bridging border edges is actually very powerful doing more complicated intricate forms, right? But also we're kind of getting to build to follow the flow, the contour of the shape, right? That's what edge loops do. If you're making a well-built, efficient model, your edge loops should follow the form of what you're building, right? At least in the broad strokes, right? Some certain really small details can often be done with sculpting and things like that, but in the broad shapes, right, your edge loops should really follow the contours of the major forms, right? Which we did with this. And extrude and bridge border edge gives us a powerful way of doing that. All right, I think that'll be a great place to stop for this video, and then we'll make one more for this to kind of finish up the last little bits and details. All right, so that'll be a great place to stop.